Have you ever wondered why it's so incredibly hard to do the things you know you should be doing? Well, today we're going to break down the science behind motivation and procrastination, and I'll show you a practical way you can actually trick your brain into liking the hard stuff. I mean, you know the feeling, right? You can completely lose yourself for hours scrolling social media or leveling up in a video game, but the second it's time to, say, study for that exam or work on your side project, poof, your focus is just gone. Why does that happen? Well, this whole conflict is at the very heart of what we can call the motivation paradox. It's this constant internal tug of war between what we know is good for us long term and what our brain wants right now. This slide just nails it, doesn't it? It shows the battle that's raging inside our minds every single day. On one side, you've got pure logic. You know you should exercise to be healthy. But on the other side, you've got this raw, powerful emotion screaming that watching TV is way easier and more fun. And let's be honest, that emotional side often wins. This isn't just a feeling, it's the very definition of procrastination.
So, what's the actual engine driving this emotional pull? To really understand what's going on, we have to look at a key chemical in your brain, dopamine.
Now, here's a really common misconception I want to clear up. A lot of people call dopamine the pleasure molecule, but that's not exactly right. It's much more accurate to call it the desire molecule. It's the chemical that creates the craving for something and gives you the motivation to go out and get it, whether that's a slice of pizza, a social media notification, or a victory in a game.
The power of dopamine is, honestly, almost hard to believe. And to really get a handle on it, we can look at a pretty famous and kind of shocking series of experiments that neuroscientists did on rats.
So check this out. When the rats could self-stimulate their reward centers with a lever, they did it obsessively. They completely ignored food, sleep, everything until they literally collapsed from exhaustion. But then, when the scientists blocked the release of dopamine, the effect was just as dramatic, but in the opposite direction. The rats became so lethargic, they lost all motivation to do anything, even to drink water. This proves that dopamine isn't really about pleasure, it's about the will to act. Without it, you do nothing. Okay, so that rat experiment might sound a little extreme, but the exact same principles apply to us, especially today. Our modern world is just absolutely flooded with things that give us huge dopamine hits. Just think about it for a second. Scrolling social media, playing video games, eating junk food, binge-watching shows, all of these things give us a constant, massive, unpredictable stream of rewards. They're flooding our brains with unnaturally high levels of dopamine. In a way, we're kind of like those rats, just constantly pulling a digital lever for that next little hit. So what happens when our brains are flooded like this all the time? Well, our bodies have this brilliant little system called homeostasis. Its job is basically to keep everything in balance. So when something gets thrown way off, your body adapts to bring it back to a new normal. A perfect way to think about this is alcohol tolerance. You know someone who rarely drinks, might feel tipsy after just one beer, right? But a regular drinker's body has adapted. They've built up a tolerance and they need a lot more to feel that same effect. Your brain does the exact same thing with dopamine. To keep things balanced from that constant flood, it actually downregulates or reduces your dopamine receptors. You develop a tolerance. And what this does is raise your baseline for what feels normal or interesting. Suddenly, everyday low dopamine activities like reading a book or cleaning your room feel incredibly dull and unmotivating. So, how do we fix this? How can we possibly break this cycle and make normal, productive life feel exciting again? Well, the answer is a strategy that's getting more and more popular called a dopamine detox. The goal of a detox is actually super simple. You're intentionally starving your brain of all that high-level stimulation. This gives your poor dopamine receptors a chance to recover and reset, bringing your motivation baseline back down to its natural, more sensitive state. I love this analogy. Think about it. If you ate every single meal at a 5-star restaurant, a simple bowl of plain rice would seem totally unappealing. But if you were starving on a deserted island, that same bowl of rice would feel like the most incredible feast of your life. A detox basically makes you hungry for normal life again. To put it as simply as possible, it works because you let yourself get so profoundly bored that the quote-unquote boring but productive stuff like studying or exercising starts to seem genuinely fun and appealing again. Okay, so now that we get the why behind all this, let's get into the how. Here are 3 practical methods you can use to start reclaiming your motivation. All right, method 1 is the most intense, but it's also the fastest way to see results. A full 1-day detox. We're talking an entire day with 0 external pleasure. No phone, no internet, no music, not even junk food. The whole point is to truly embrace boredom, to just let your mind wander without any distractions. You can go for a walk, meditate, maybe journal your thoughts on actual paper. Look, it's challenging for sure, but it's an incredibly powerful way to hit the reset button. Now, if a full-day detox sounds a little too radical, don't worry, there's a more moderate approach, the weekly habit. All you do is pick 1 day a week, let's say Sunday, and you choose one of your biggest dopamine habits to cut out for that entire day. Maybe it's video games, maybe it's TikTok. You will be amazed at how that little bit of manufactured boredom can suddenly make productive things like planning your week seem way more appealing. And finally, for a more long-term, sustainable way to manage motivation, you can completely shift your mindset. Instead of using these high dopamine activities as your go-to escape from boredom, you turn them into a reward that you actually have to earn. A really great way to structure this is with a reward ratio. For every chunk of focused, low dopamine work you get done, you earn a smaller chunk of high dopamine fun. So maybe it's 15 minutes of scrolling Instagram for every hour you study. The key is finding a ratio that feels right for you, so that maybe 8 hours of solid work can earn you 2 hours of completely guilt-free gaming later on. Now, there is one absolutely crucial, non-negotiable rule to make this entire system work. The reward has to come after the work. If you flip that order, your brain gets its easy dopamine hit right up front, and your motivation to do the hard thing will completely evaporate. So remember, always work first, then reward yourself. So if there's just one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. By strategically and intentionally reducing your exposure to the modern world's fire hose of artificial dopamine, you allow your brain's reward system to reset. And when it does, you'll find that the normal, productive, and meaningful parts of your life become engaging and exciting, all on their own. Ultimately, every day, we all face a choice. Are you going to get your dopamine from cheap, easy, temporary distractions? Or will you get it from the genuine, lasting satisfaction of actually making progress on your goals? Where you get your dopamine from, well, that's up to you.